Sukhaya karmani karoti loko natai sukham vanyaduparamam va. The Srimad Bhagavat says that everybody is searching for happiness. And instead of happiness, they are getting misery. The reason for this is they are looking for happiness in the wrong place, having forgotten their inner being, their intrinsic spiritual nature. They have misidentified themselves as the body. And hence they have made bodily pursuits of happiness as their foremost goal. If only they could decide, I am the Spirit, I am eternal, I am divine, I am far more than matter, and the joy that my soul seeks is not in the mundane, puny things. Then we will search for the divine. And when we do, it is not difficult to reach to that joy. What is it that we need to do? How can we utilize the science of yoga for joyous living? As I said, there are different aspects to our personality. There is the physical aspect, the mental aspect, the intellectual aspect, and the real I, the spirit. In order to achieve joy, our physical resources are not limited. We have been blessed with these two eyes. Each eye is fitted with 125 million receptors, each with the help of which we can enjoy the beauty of the 7 colors of the rainbow, the grandeur of an eagle in flight, the amazing sight of the forest in the Amazon, the wonder of the crimson sky of the setting sun in the ocean. Are we not blessed with this grace? The ears that we possess are fitted with 24,000 fibers each, with the help of which we can hear the sound of children in laughter, the chirping of the birds in the morning, the rustling of the leaves with the gentle flow of the breeze, and the breaking of the waves on the ocean. Count it as yet another grace. We have a brain which is fitted with 100 billion neurons, with the help of which we can appreciate the intricacies of grammar, the aesthetics of the plays of William Shakespeare, the logic of a computer program, and the ethical ramifications of our decisions. Count it as yet another grace. We have a musculoskeletal system that is endowed with 205 bones and 630 muscles, with the help of which you can climb up mountain peaks, you can dive into lakes, you can swim across streams, and you can dive from above in parachutes. Call this as another blessing. We have a heart that is pumping at the rate of 100,000 times in a day, which makes it 36.5 million times in a year. And it is not tiring out, incessantly working in our service. Can we say that we don't have enough? We definitely do have tremendous resources that we have been endowed with. The shortcoming may be of the attitude. What is short in all of this? One aspect of our personality which we don't pay heed to, and that is the mind. The mind is such a thing that it blocks out happiness. The British philosopher of the 17th century, John Milton, in his book Paradise Lost, put it so perfectly when he said, the mind is a place of its own, and in itself can make heaven out of hell, and hell out of heaven. The mind is so powerful. Sitting in heaven, if the mind is agitated, it can give you the torments of hell. And sitting in hell, if the mind is equipoised, it can make you experience the joys of heaven. That is why this mind is so central to our personality. Veritably, we are what our mind is, because the consciousness is tied to the mind. We have many doctors here. They will inform you there's an evolving field in medical science called the mind-body connection. The fine line between psychology and biology is disappearing, as medical science is realizing that mind has its impact upon the body as well. It's been discovered that when people experience despair and lack of hope in life, that is when they are most susceptible to depression and cancer. It has been experienced that amongst the centenarians who lived more than 100 years, the common factor is not that they did not drink, they did not smoke, or they exercised, or they did not exercise. The common factor is that they all have a positive and cheerful mindset. Cancer survivors were surveyed for their commonality, and it was discovered those who have a cheerful and optimistic disposition are most likely to be surviving after so many years. In other words, every thought has an impact upon the body. Our cells are constantly eavesdropping upon the mind. Without our realizing, the thoughts are impacting the richness of our human experience so tremendously. You look at a person and say, he seems to be a very angry guy. How do you know? No, his thoughts of anger are reflecting on the face. Like a sculptor, they have chiseled his appearance. And you look at somebody else and say, oh, so simple and trustworthy. Once again, how do you know? The nature of the thoughts created the appearance. So thoughts are definitely connected to the physical body in terms of the appearance they impart, in terms of the health that they bestow, and in terms of the experience of joy and misery. Somebody is sitting happily. You go and speak something that creates a miserable thought in that person. He or she becomes miserable. The thought created the misery. Somebody else is miserable. Go and say something that creates a cheerful thought, and the person becomes cheerful. So our experiences of joy or lack of it are all dependent upon the nature of our thoughts. These thoughts are so important. That is why Maharshi Patanjali, who wrote the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, which are like the basis of the yoga being practiced around the world. He starts off by explaining Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. The goal of yoga is Chitta Vritti Nirodha, to help you establish control over the thought processes of your mind. The mind inside this body is like a subtle machine that is constantly generating thoughts. It's a thought-creating machine, and the thoughts are fructifying into actions. If we wish to improve our actions, once again the seeds for those actions are the thoughts within. So we do need, for our own inner joy, to learn the ability to manage the mind. Nevertheless, that is only one aspect of our personality. If the car in which you are going is defective, no matter how good a driver you are, you cannot reach your destination. In the same way, the car for the soul and the mind is the body. And hence, this journey has to begin with tuning up the body. That is why in this yogic system, there is the outlining of the scientific processes for keeping this body healthy, a fine instrument. Sharira madhyam khalu dharma sadhanam. Even to attain your spiritual objectives, the body is your vehicle and needs to be taken care of. So, a true yogic practice addresses all aspects of our personality. There are varieties of systems of yoga that have been taught for thousands of years. There is the system of karma yoga, which teaches us how to experience the divine joy through work, how to make your work divine. There is then the system of Jnana Yoga, which teaches us how to illumine your intellect with such wisdom that you elevate yourself to be established in the transcendental. There is the system of Hatha Yoga, which teaches how through self-abnegation and austerity and overcoming the lower self by the higher self, you can go inward to reach the fountain source of joy. There is the system of Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of divine love, that teaches you how to expand your heart until it encompasses the entire world, free from the tiniest irritants, and through love reach that ultimate joy. There is the system of Ashtanga Yoga, propounded by Maharshi Patanjali, the eightfold process: Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharan, Dhyan, Samadhi. The eightfold process, of which the physical postures is the third asana. The breathing exercises is the fourth pranayam, and yet there is so much more to it. So the science of yoga has been, we are so thrilled that it is spread through the world. For many millennia it was practiced by yogis in the caves of the Himalayas and in the forests of Dandakaranya, and by some illumined, enlightened kings. However, today it is spread all over. And the greatest salutation to this science came when in 2014, the United Nations unanimously, in a motion that was supported by 173 countries, adopted 21st of June as the International Day of Yoga. In commemoration of the International Day of Yoga, we are celebrating this festival. The word yoga comes from the Sanskrit word yog. And the word yog is extremely deep and philosophic. It means union. To unite is yog. That requires the understanding of the unity of all things. Presently, we are in a state of Viyog. That is the reverse of Yog. Let us say this is the divine consciousness, this is the individual consciousness. The individual consciousness has turned its back to the divine. That is the state of Viyog. In the state of Viyog, we have been covered by this ignorance of bodily consciousness. And we are striving for bhog. Bhog is the endeavor for sensual gratification. But bhog is the root cause of rog. So instead of yog, we are in viyog, and we are indulging in bhog, which is resulting in rog. Rog is disease. And what is the solution for this disease? The solution is to go to the root and to change our consciousness. There is an ancient scripture called the Yoga Vasisht that has a very relevant discussion to the theme of our festival here. Thousands of years ago, King Ram, he was touring his kingdom, and he found his citizens in rog or disease. He was moved to pity. He came back and asked his spiritual preceptor, Maharshi Vasisht, "O Gurudev, what is the cause of disease?" Vyadhi, rog. Maharshi Vasisht gave a very perceptive answer that will be validated by the Harvard Medical School today. He said, "Ram, disease begins in the mind." When we harbor negative thoughts in the mind, thoughts of anxiety, tension, fear, hatred, greed, those poisonous thoughts, they disrupt the mental sheath. When the mental sheath is disrupted, it disturbs the vital energy sheath, which is the pran, which the Chinese call the chi, the vital force within all of us. And when the vital force is disturbed, it manifests in the gross body as disease. That is why the holistic system of medicine endeavors at the holistic treatment of disease, and the yogic system endeavors at addressing our personality in all its aspects, the physical, the mental, the intellectual, and the spiritual, to ultimately take us to the goal of this journey, which is yoga, which is union with the Supreme Consciousness. And since that Supreme is the ocean of joy, that yoga, that union will lead to joy. So how do we get yoga for joyous living in that case? The question is, do you just wish to do yoga, or do you wish to be a yogi? If you just wish to do yoga, it's a matter of 1 hour every day. But if you wish to be joyous, you do your yoga and also be a yogi. In other words, in that sense of unity, you see yourself as a part of the entire universe. You see everybody in their interconnectedness. See the source of it all, the energy you have is stemming from that source. Every endeavor is of yours as worthy of being consecrated to the divine. And when you start leading your life in divine consciousness, with your mind yoked in yoga to the divine, every aspect of your life becomes yoga. Whether you eat, whether you sleep, whether you work, nothing is separated from it. And in that yogic state, in that state of connected consciousness, life becomes a joy. Not the joy from the outside, but the inner joy of a mind held in divine consciousness, in equipoise, undisturbed by success and failure, by heat and cold, by deprivation and abundance, a mind that is connected to the source of joy within, that enables us to retain our joy wherever we go and make our whole life a celebration.